It's kind of sad to see how the MCU shows that end up on Disney Plus have kind of like died down in hype. Because even when I remember when they first started with the first three of WandaVision, the Falcon, the Winter Soldier, and Loki, like those had insane hype behind them, but now it just feels like they've died down mainly because the quality hasn't been what it's used to. But I just watched Secret Invasion, so let's get into that. I gotta admit, I was pretty excited for this show. I like the Secret Invasion comic in general. I think that story is very interesting. You could get some good, like, political thriller angles out of it, and the fact that this was being marketed when the trailers were coming out, and mostly lived up to, of it being a political thriller, at least compared to the terms of the MCU, on like the same tone as like the Captain America movies, more specifically the Winter Soldier, and maybe Civil War if you can stretch it a little bit. But you can also like pull the inspirations in tone from like Homeland or The Americans and those kind of shows, which are very much my thing. So going into this, I feel like this could have been a pretty big winner for Marvel in general, especially since, even though they had a bit of a weak like hits on their hand, well, not weak hits, but like they had some weak movies and shows on their hands. But they just had a huge win with Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So, honestly, my hype wasn't through the roof for this, but I was hoping to have a good time. And let's get to that. I think you know the general plot of Secret Invasion. The Skrulls are on Earth, they've infiltrated in society, and they're trying to take over the planet. Fury, along with Ben Mendelsohn's character from Captain Marvel, Talos, they have to stop this Skrull insurgent leader Gravik, and just they gotta get him. And I gotta admit, I thought this show started pretty strong. I actually really liked the first two episodes of this. I'm not gonna get into spoilers for this show because I gotta have some sort of respect for this thing. But I really did like how this show started. At least for the time, it actually set the stakes up for Nick Fury as a character pretty well. And for a little bit there, it was actually a pretty compelling show. One of the things that the MCU has really worked for me, at least from a storytelling perspective, is its world building. That was its thing for the first three phases, where like every movie, even if they weren't technically related to each other, was building upon itself and building out this world. And even I didn't really feel this in Phase 4 for a couple of them, or actually for most of them. But I actually felt that in this, there actually felt like that there were actual people living in this world, and they're fleshing out not only like the more science fiction aspects of this, but also the more human stuff in here. And whenever it was doing stuff like that, and especially when it was actually a good scene, I actually really thought that was good. This show did rely a lot on cliffhangers, though. Since this was 6 episodes, I think 4 or 5 of the episodes ended on cliffhangers. Granted, they were big ones, but looking back on it, it kind of relied on them a lot, more than usual when it comes to these Marvel shows. I actually think the acting in here was pretty good too. It's always good to see Samuel L. Jackson play Furious now that he's more in basically a leading role for the first time. It was really nice to see him in this in a lead role, knowing more about this super spy essentially. I also liked Ben Mendelsohn in this quite a bit. I liked him in Captain Marvel, and I also thought he did a good job here too. I also liked Olivia Colman, who is playing, I think her name's Sonia Falsworth, this UK-based spy, who had this gleeful, like, chill to her that she had some of the best scenes in the whole show. I think Kingsley Ben-Adir was okay as the villain of the of the series Gravik. Although, just as I thought he was actually getting menacing, Barbie came out where he plays a Ken in that, and that came out right before the finale, and knowing that he was just Ken, it took a lot of the menace out of him for me, but that's just me. Emilia Clarke is also okay in this. I don't feel like her character had to be in the show, though. I'm not going to spoil who her character is, because I don't remember if they said in the trailers, and she's pretty big character reveal. At least how it was treated in the show. I also like Don Cheadle's Rhodes in this. Also a bit more of a lead role in this. And there's a great scene between him and Fury at a diner, which I think was in the 3rd episode, I think? It's either in the 3rd or 4th episode that this was in, maybe even the 2nd. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it was a pretty good scene, and one of the only things in this where I thought this had pretty good writing. And that's the next point I gotta get to. Actually, before that, I'm gonna skip over a couple things in my notes, and I gotta mention the finale in this. Because, again, no spoilers, but I'm an MCU fan. I mean, look at my picture, you know that. The MCU show finales have always been an issue for me, at least out of the ones I've seen. For a frame of reference, the only full show I haven't seen is Miss Marvel, which I gotta get to it before the Marvels. And I've also seen a few episodes of She-Hulk, but not all of them. The finales of these shows have been hit or miss, pretty much always a miss. The only one that I think that is genuinely great and is actually, like, held up for me on rewatch was Loki. Because that's my favorite show out of all of them. I think that had a perfect finale. But also, I like the fun jabs that the She-Hulk finale took at the MCU as a whole, and how their finales are very generic. And I like the little meta grab at that. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. But it gets almost completely undone, that joke, because the finale just is that. Like, no spoilers, but they do the thing that the She-Hulk finale is making fun of, and they are fully serious about it. And it doesn't also help that I think Secret Invasion has the worst finale out of all these shows. This was really the only time it had actual visual effects, because what was promised was this grounded, down-to-earth, like, spy show. And for 5 episodes, it pretty much is that. And I was really digging the vibe of the show, even though I didn't think it was the best thing on the planet. I really dug the vibe of the show when it was doing that. I thought there were compelling aspects to this. There were a couple scenes in here that I thought were pretty good, and I liked dissecting Nick Fury for who he was and essentially breaking him down. And I thought that was an interesting approach to this kind of thing. Outside of the weird effects, the effect that didn't look good in the finale, the only other complaint visual-wise I had about the other episodes is that there are a couple scenes where there's just some wonky green screen. And other than that, that's really it. It also doesn't help that the finale of the show just kind of drops a lot of what made the show work, for me at least. Because at least, I could argue that Secret Invasion still had some kind of identity to the MCU in the way that it was tied to the Winter Soldier visually, and even tonally, and even some of the comedy. There wasn't a bunch of humor in this, but even the little bits of comedy they did still kind of landed for me, and it wasn't quippy and over the top, and I like that. It's like when WandaVision dropped the whole aesthetic of the sitcom stuff in its finale. It had something really good going for it, and for the most part I genuinely liked, but it drops everything there because you know, you gotta do that big finale that everyone's waiting for. I really only have the Secret Invasion finale lower than the WandaVision finale because I cared about the characters in WandaVision and it was a better show. I really do mean it when I say that the finale of this show really tanked it for me. Like, in a way that I didn't think was possible for these shows. And just, it was very shocking to see that, even when, like, they may or may not be picking up plot points for the Marvels, which is another movie that Fury's gonna be in. I'm pretty sure it's the next MCU movie. And knowing that they left off some plot points in here, especially with all the marketing about this being Fury's last stand, when he's in a movie coming out in 3 months, it kind of took away all that tension. I guess those are my thoughts on Secret Invasion. I really did not think this was good. This was a crushing disappointment. There is some good stuff here, but it's kind of balanced out by the things that are pretty bad here. I liked seeing Nick Fury in a leading role. I feel like there was a lot working here, but so much of it is dropped in the finale or written poorly in the finale that really just kind of undoes a lot of the good stuff that was in the earlier episodes. I also think this could have been much more as like a thing. You know, like I don't think it should have been limited to a 6-episode event, as they're calling it. I don't even think it should have been one movie. I really do think this, that in the rebuilding era, if they are going to do the multiverse thing, this should have been Phase 4. Like, if they're going to be rebuilding, like, all of these different things, why not have Secret Invasion be Phase 4 and, like, work all that stuff out? You know, like a little in-between thing before you get to, like, all the multiverse stuff. Just, like, I think that could have worked. And because of that, I'm going to go with a 5 out of 10 for Secret Invasion. I thought this was a crushing disappointment for me because I was pretty excited for this. But, just, this should have been better. Alright, if you watched it, what did you think of Secret Invasion, and where do you rank this among the other Disney Plus MCU shows? And also, if you want to, in the comments, rank the MCU shows you've seen, because I'm curious about that. As I said, my favorite's Loki. I'm excited for Season 2 later this year, so let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!